This is an excerpt or a portion from the Autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. First, it gives us a little bit of background about him. It says Benjamin Franklin arrived in the city of Philadelphia in 1723 at the age of 17. He knew no one. And he had little money and fewer possessions. That means, things that he owned. However, his accomplishments shaped the city in ways that are still visible today. He helped establish Philadelphia's public library and fire department, as well as its first college. In addition, through his efforts, Philadelphia became the first city in the colonies to have streetlights. While Franklin was a brilliant man, some of his successors can be attributed to the sheer self-discipline, which is evident in his excerpt. It was about this time that I conceived the bold and arduous project of arriving at moral perfection. Now remember, as we're reading this, these blue words are here on the side that will tell us the meaning to that blue word. This is just like in a textbook. Also remember that this is coming from Benjamin Franklin himself. This is what he thought, how he went about his day, how his thoughts worked. And I want you to think about that as we read. Arduous means difficult. I wished to live without committing any thought at any time. I would conquer all that either natural inclination, custom, or company might lead me into. So far, we can see that he's trying to be morally perfect, which we as humans know that that's difficult to do. He even says it's difficult when he says it's arduous. It's an arduous project of arriving at moral perfection. I knew, or I thought I knew, what was right and wrong. I did not see why I might not always do the one and would avoid the other. But I soon found I had undertaken a task more difficult than I had imagined. While my care was employed in guarding against one fault, I was often surprised by another. Habit took the advantage of inattention. Inclination was sometimes too strong for reason. I concluded that at length that the mere speculative conviction that it was our interest to be completely virtuous was not sufficient to prevent our slipping, and that the contrary habits must be broken and good ones acquired and established before we can have any dependence on a steady, uniform rectitude of conduct. For this purpose, I was therefore contrived the following method. So he's telling us how this method that he has for being a better person. In the various enumerations of the moral virtues I had met with my reading, I found the catalog more or less numerous, as different writers included more or fewer ideas under the same name. Temperance, for example, was by some confined to eating and drinking, while by others it was extended to mean the moderating every other pleasure, appetite, and inclination or passion, bodily or mental, even to our avarice and ambition. Avarice means greed, and temperance means to be abstinent from something, especially alcohol. I propose to myself, for the sake of clearness, to use rather more names with fewer ideas annexed to each. then a few names with more ideas, and I included under 13 names of virtues, all that at that time occurred to me as necessary for desirable and annex each other, each a short percept which fully expressed the extent I gave to this meaning. Okay, there's a lot of big words in this paragraph. Let's talk about those big words. Some of the words that I noticed that you know is unfamiliar to a sophomore might be annexed or precept. Annex means to add to. You know, a good synonym for that would be just to add on, and precept is just a rule. So let's read that last part of that paragraph again with these added words, you know, with these synonyms. And if there's any other words that you don't know, you could pause the video, go look them up, and then come back and it'll make more sense, you know. So I'm going back to where he starts after the semicolon. He says, and I included under 13 names of virtues, or this is morals. All that at the time occurred to me as necessary or desirable. It means at this time it seemed like I needed it. And he added to each a short rule, which fully expressed the extent I gave to its meaning. The names of virtues with their rules were temperance, eat not to dullness, drink not to elevation. That means don't overeat, don't overdrink. Silence, speak not but what may benefit others or yourself. Avoid trifling conversation. These are rules we could use today, guys. Don't overeat, don't overdrink. Don't get so drunk that you, I'll use Morgan Wallen for an example. The poor guy ruined his whole career because he drank too much and said some things we all know he should not have said. Silence. Speak only what could benefit others or yourself. Don't speak ill against people. Order. Let all your things have their place. Let each part of your business have its time. Resolution. Resolve to perform what you ought. Perform without fail what you resolve. Do what you're supposed to do. Pay people you're supposed to pay. Do the work you're assigned. Fragility. Make no expense, but do good to others for yourself. Or don't waste anything. Don't waste your food, you know. Don't waste your money. Industry. Lose no time. Be always employed in something useful. Cut off all unnecessary actions. Sincerity. Use no hurtful deceit. Think innocently and justly, and if you speak, speak accordingly. Don't lie on others. Be kind to others. Justice. Wrong no one by doing injuries or omitting the benefits that are your duty. Do what you're supposed to do. If it's your duty to help, then help. And it is everyone's duty. If we see someone in need, help them. And don't hurt anyone. Don't steal. Don't kill. Moderation. Avoid extremes. Forbear or stay away. Don't do. Resenting injury so much that as you think they deserve. Like, don't dwell on something so much that you feel like you need to get revenge. Cleanliness. Tolerate no uncleanliness in body, clothes, or habitation. Basically, you know what he's saying. Clean your house and take a bath or shower. Tranquility. Be not disturbed at rifles or at accidents common or unavoidable. Chastity. Rarely use. Chastity means to be pure. Venery. But for health or offspring, never to dullness, weakness, or the injury of your own or another's peace of or reputation. You know, Basically, wait till you're married is what he's saying there. Humility. Imitate Jesus and Socrates. Jesus, he's using Jesus because of the moral, and Socrates, and use your brain, My intention being to acquire the habitude of all these virtues, I judged it would be well not to distract my attention by attempting the whole at once, but to fix it on one of them at a time. And when I should be master of that, then to proceed to another, and so on, till I should have gone through the 13, and as the previous acquisition of some might facilitate the acquisition of certain others, I arranged them with the few as they stand above temperance first, as it tends to procure that coolness and clearness of head which is so necessary where constant vigilance or watchfulness was to keep up and guard maintained against the unremitting traction of ancient habits, that force of perpetual temptations. This being acquired and established, silence would be more easy, and my desire being to gain knowledge at the same time, I would improve in virtue. And considering that in conversation it was obtained rather by the use of the ears than of the tongue, and therefore wishing to break a habit I was getting into of prattling, punning, and joking, which only made me acceptable to trifling company, I gave silence the second place. So basically what he's saying is he put them in this order for a reason, because if you abstain from or temperance, meaning to abstain from alcohol, then you won't get drunk and say things that you shouldn't say. You wouldn't go and what he's saying here with the habits of the force being to say things that you shouldn't say, and that rattling and punning and joking would stop. So that's why silence is second, because if you're not drinking, you're not going to say things you shouldn't say most of the time. This and the next order I expected would allow me more time for attending to my project and my studies. Resolution once became habitual, would keep me from my endeavors to obtain all the subsequent virtues. Fragility and industry, freeing me from remaining in debt and proceeding affluence and independence, would make it more easy the practice of sincerity and justice, etc., etc. Conceiving then that agreeably to the advice of Pythagoras, and if we look over here, it's down a little bit lower at the bottom. We see that is a philosopher and mathematician who lived in the 16th century that he's referring to there. In the golden verses, daily examination would be necessary. I contrived the following method for conducting that examination. I made a little book in which I allotted a page for each of the virtues. I ruled each page with red ink so as to have 7 columns, one for each day of the week, marking each column with a letter for the day. I crossed the columns with 13 red lines, marking the beginning of each of the line with the first letter of one of the virtues, on which line and its proper column I might mark by a little black spot every fault I found upon examination to have been committed respecting that virtues upon that day. So basically saying here, he put the virtues in that order because once you do one, the rest will be easy to do. Once you quit drinking, you'll quit speaking ill of others. Once you clear up all your debt, then it's easy to be honest with people and keep up good business.